Looking for member, heroic Uldir, base minimum, 395 eye level, Titanforge. Please link ahead of the curve, Nazoth. And that's just for Talok. Mina! It's me. Today we're going to be talking about Titanforging and how this thing has, I guess, a bit of a controversial debate surrounding it. I'm going to be looking at some of the pros, cons, the history, all kinds of that stuff, and delving into what it means to have Titanforging in modern World of Warcraft. So I'm going to be dividing this topic into multiple sections. I'll be first addressing some of the history behind Titanforging, the history of gearing in general. Then I'll be looking at some of the identity of gear and what gear used to mean and how gear, I guess, means nowadays. And then we'll be looking at some of the casual perspectives from the game. Does Titanforging assist casuals? Does it dissuade them? Does it help them? And then we'll be looking at some of the difficulties in the game. That is normal, heroic, mythic, LFR, etc. How that gear progression system affects the gear that you obtain in the game, what it means for your character. Now, first and foremost, I just want to get my opinion straight out the bat so you don't have any kind of qualms with what I believe and what I'm trying to say here, because I think it's important that I'm completely transparent and my opinion isn't skewed by some kind of, ulterior agenda. I'm just going to tell you straight up what I think. Personally, I'm of the opinion that Titanforging is one of, perhaps, if not the worst system ever added into the game. And that's for the reasons that I'll explain coming up here. But that's not to say I don't recognize some of the, I guess, positives and some of the more counter arguments that people can make towards Titanforging. So it's important to try and give some kind of an objective, balanced conclusion to this. However, I do want you to know that obviously I do have my own opinions, and humans naturally gonna have that filter through the content. So let's first begin with a brief history, I guess, of gear in the game. For those of you who are unaware, back in the day, gear was a way more rarer. Bosses dropped nowhere near as much gear as they do now. It was way less gear that you got back in the day. On top of that, gear was a lot rarer in the sense that rare items, blue quality items, that was the norm. For a lot of people, even as far into Blackwing Lair, you would be wearing blue items. Compared that to nowadays, where if you aren't full epic in a raid, that's just completely unacceptable. Like that's just not doable. Unless, of course, you're getting some streamer privileges or something like that. Generally, if you're in a competitive guild, you will be expected to have full epic before the release of a tier at the start of expansion, for example. Back in, I think, Cataclysm is when they really upped the amount of gear drops that you got. I think it was a way to differentiate between 10 and 25 rating, to give people an incentive to do the harder difficulty, but that ended up being a shit show altogether, so let's not get into that. Now, identity of gear I think is very important in an RPG, because as you progress your character throughout the game, it's important that you have some kind of identity, some kind of goal that you set yourself for gear. So for example, I remember very vividly the day that I got my Triptych Shield of the Ancients. I used to play Resto Shaman back in the Burning Crusade, and that shield you'd use all the way into like Black Temple. That shield was pretty much like Biss for like 2 tiers of content. It was insane, that despite the fact it was some chess event, like crappy Karazhan loot, right? But that's how important gear was, because when you saw someone wear that in game, when you saw someone having that equipped to their character, you knew what that shield was. Every healer in the game, like a paladin, a shaman, I say every healer in the game, it's like 2, okay? But to be fair, you needed 5 shamans back in Burning Crusade. Everyone knew what that shield was, because it was the best one that you could have. And even the shield before that, it was an auction house blue. That was the best one that you could get before you entered Karazhan. I don't remember the name, but the fact that I remember this even after like 10 years or something goes to show you that there was a sense of identity. When you saw someone with ash candy, you knew what that was. The tier sets, all of that kind of stuff. When you look at someone's gear, you can see what they're wearing. Compare that today. I don't know anything my character's wearing. I'm personally 6 out of 8 mythic, only raiding 2 days a week. I know, I suck, okay? But raiding 2 days a week, 6 out of 8 mythic. I've done a lot of Uldir, I've done a lot of mythic plus, and to tell you the truth, I could name 2 items on my character. I actually tried to think about this before I started recording. I can tell you the name of 2 items on my character. The reason for that is because we cycle through the items in game so fast that they just mean nothing. So the point I'm trying to make for you is that I know that my Demon Hunter has 2 Glaives of the Keepers and a Freneted Corpse, the Trinket from Fetid. That's it. Generally, I don't know any other item I'm wearing. Oh, the Dark Moon Trinket, I guess, because, I had to type it into the auction house to buy it. Best in slot after like 8 weeks of BFA, by the way, for some reason. you don't have that connection anymore. Back in the day, you would wait weeks to get that item to drop. Nowadays, if you wait weeks for an item, just go do Mythic Plus. Just get some kind of replacement for it beforehand. Should be enough, should be good to go. Now let's talk about the casual perspective, I suppose. Now this is, I guess, a kind of argument that a lot of people make, is the idea that if you are a casual player, you don't have time to play as much, fair enough. You can go into Mythic Plus, do your cash, whatever. You can get a nice Titanforge gear, and that will catch you up to the people who are playing all the time and are a little bit more progressed than you. So if you're more casual, don't have time to play, you do a Mythic Plus once or twice a week, get lucky with the Titanforge, now your eye level's boosted enough to reach the people who are at the main. Has anyone spotted the problem with that argument yet? I'll let you wait a second. Okay, ready? Sure. So that doesn't work because a casual player might get super lucky, and then a person who plays all the time just could be unlucky. Maybe their item levels will balance out over 2 weeks or something. But overall, the person who plays more has higher chances and has more attempts at the equation, at the statistics, to be able to roll a dice that gets them a higher item level upgrade. So what you actually find, basically, in my completely dumb, retarded way of explaining numbers, is that the gap furthers. The people at the very top end who play all the time, they are going to have a bigger gap than the casuals who play less. Because the casuals have less chances of getting a Titanforged item, that their item level actually lags behind, despite it being above the normal requirement of, like, you know, normal Uldir or a Mythic 5 or something. The people who play all the time, their item level is going to be way far further ahead. The reason for that is because, like I said, they have more chances at getting a Titanforge because they do more Mythic Plus, they do more raids, they do more bosses, they do more content that has a chance to drop Titanforged items, that statistically they're just going to have more Titanforged items because they play more. So what you find is that gap completely expands and you have a bigger chasm from the casual to the regular. I don't know how anyone can argue otherwise, but Titanforging does drastically hurt the casual player base. And that moves on to my next point, talking about the sort of, I've got this down in my notes that don't deserve to be there, but I guess, you know, without sounding too elitist, there are some people with super vastly inflated eye levels because of the Titanforging system that they are technically capable of doing the content. You don't really need that high eye level to do your plus 10. 365, maybe even 360, you could probably do a plus 10 in time with a good solid group of players who know what they're doing. However, you could have people with 375 eye level don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. And my final argument as well against this is that because there's so many difficulties in the game. Now, I don't want to get into this argument about LFR being bad for the game and stuff like that, but we do, as a matter of fact, have 4 difficulties of rating. LFR, normal, heroic, mythic. From that point on, what you have is 4 versions of the one item. Because you have 4 versions of the one item, and those items themselves can forge to various integers, you now have a completely, like, no sense of identity and connection with your item, because there's so many of them in game, there's so many versions. Oh, I got my normal Glaive of the Keeper, sure, I'm gonna get my heroic next reset. Oh, I got my heroic, well, I'm gonna get mythic next week. Oh, I didn't even get the mythic one, I'll just do mythic plus 10 and I'll get one sword from the freehold. There's so much gear in the game that you don't have that identity with it, that you don't have that connection with your item. So the overabundance of gear means that it just means less. It's worthless. It doesn't mean anything because you can just do a Mythic Plus to get it. You can do a different raid. You can Titanforge lower difficulty. It's just how the game works now. But like I said, I think that overall it does hurt casuals more than anything. And overall, I think it's a bad system. Now, the solution that I would have for it is that, well, I guess they've kind of already implemented it, but not as strictly as before. Now, I believe the way Titanforging currently works is that it can't forge past the Mythic base level in normal and heroic, but you can still, I think, get world boss drops that can go past that. I'm not 100% sure, but the way I would do it is, well, I would have like lots of Titanforging in the game, but not based on eye level. What I mean by that is that maybe Titanforging tertiary stats. That's something I think could be kind of cool, and it's a thing that doesn't affect your character's damage, but does enhance its gameplay a decent amount for it to be somewhat noticeable, but not game-breaking, I think. So for example, a Titanforged 385 weapon wouldn't get higher eye level. It would just get leech, or speed, or avoidance. Maybe having it limited to something like that would be cool. Ideally, you know, we just go back to the old days where blue gear was used all the way deeper into, like, you know, the first raid and stuff, and it was okay because gear was rare. But I think that overall, it's fair to say that gear has lost a lot of its like value in the game, from both a sentimental perspective and just an actual usage, like just from an actual mechanical usage point of view. Like gear doesn't mean anything, like, because like I said, if you don't get your item from the raid, you just do a mythic plus and like, you know, you do it at the +10, it can get Titanforged and maybe even be better than the one in your raid. Like that can happen. So that's my thoughts on it. I am going to admit it's not a balanced conclusion because I'm pretty much against the system, but I thought I would lay out some of the arguments for you to think about. And you can leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. Maybe you convince me otherwise. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Until next time, my name has been HeyMiruh.